even know what we're talking about, it's always a bad sign. Okay. All right. Some demonically possessed individual that's Satan is sending to try to disrupt, as we can see already. All right. Let us go to the book of Joshua, which is Yahawashi. Joshua chapter 5. Yahawashi chapter 5. I'm going to begin reading at verse 5 and go down to verse 9. Okay. Thank you, Sister Josie. Yahawashi, otherwise known as Joshua, chapter 5, from verse 5 to 9. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came out of Egypt, were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh, unto whom Yahweh sware that they would not that he would not show them the land, which Yahweh sware unto their fathers, that he would not give us a land, that he would give us a land that floweth with milk and honey. And their children, whom he raised up in their stead, them Yahawashi circumcised. For they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. And it came to pass, when they had done circumcising all the people, that they abode in their places in the camp, till they were whole. And Yahweh said unto Yahawashi, This day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. Okay, so the children of Israel that came out of Egypt, the men of war that they had numbered, 600,000, were circumcised. But they came to the promised land, to the borders of the promised land, and they did not trust in the Most High, but rebelled against him. So their flesh of their foreskin was circumcised, but their hearts were not circumcised. And they went back in the wilderness, and that's why the scripture says they shall not enter into my rest. What he's talking about literally is the promised land. They would not enter into the rest or the land that was promised to them because of their rebellion against the Most High. So he sent them back into the wilderness for 40 years, the time of testing. And their children, which were too young at the time they first got to the borders of the promised land, over the next 40 years, all the children that were born were not circumcised. Why? I don't know. They weren't circumcised. But here they're entering into the borders of the promised land for the second time. And here they're all being commanded by the Most High Yahawashi, or Joshua, is commanded to have all the males circumcised. Okay? So before they actually go into the promised land, he's saying you must all be circumcised. What does that mean for us? So our fathers who were before us fell in the wilderness because of disobedience to the commandments of the Most High. We are their children, and we are about to go into the land. And so he's looking for us to be circumcised, circumcised in our hearts. And as we know, we are circumcised in our hearts through repentance. And so when they were circumcised, the Most High Yahweh told Joshua, This day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal, which means rolling, unto this day. Rolled away reproach. What reproach? Because they were slaves in Egypt. Second-class citizens. They were in a reproach state. They were looked down upon because they were slaves in Egypt. Follow me so far? They were slaves. Just so. The reproach is on the Hebrews today because they also are or were in slavery. And there are still people all over the earth still in slavery, even in 2016. And the Hebrews in these developing countries that were slaves are under a reproach. And before Yahawashi comes to bring them into the land, their hearts must be circumcised, so that the reproach will be rolled away. Because when the hearts are circumcised and they are totally repentant and dependent on the Most High alone and his word alone, then he can seal them with his spirit, the Holy Spirit of promise, the Spirit of the Father, Yahweh. And when he seals them, the reproach of slavery, the reproach of being second-class citizens will be rolled away. See, I've rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you, or the reproach of bondage, the reproach of slavery from where you came from. I've rolled that away from off you. Okay? So that's what he started with. Then we're looking at this in two ways. We're seeing how it happened when they initially went into the promised land several thousand years ago, 3,500 years ago. But we're also seeing at the same time how we, the modern children of Israel today, the descendants of those people, are going to get into the promised land, the real promised land that's going to be for eternity. So we're seeing both. It's dual. Joshua chapter 5, we just read the verse 9. Joshua chapter 5, from verse 9 down to verse 12. Joshua chapter 5, from verse 9 down to verse 12. And Yahweh said unto Joshua, or Yahawashi, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. And they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land. Neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. Let's stop right here. So they were circumcised, and before they entered into the promised land, they kept the Passover. So before they entered into the promised land, they kept the Passover. Now, let's break this down, because this is deep, brothers and sisters. Let's break this down. Let me ask you, what time of the year, of the physical year, is the Passover? What season is the Passover? No, the Passover is not in the fall. What season is, you should know better than that, sister. Come on now. That's right. The Passover is in the spring. The Passover is in the spring. It is the first feast of the year. It is the 14th day of the first month, the month of Abib. That's right. So the Passover is in the spring. That is correct. Right. So we are told, though, we are shown in the scriptures that when Messiah returns, he's going to be putting together an ingathering, a harvest. What time of year is there a feast, and what is the feast that happens in the harvest, in the time of the gathering in of the crops, of the wheat? What time of the year is that? That's fall. That's right. The fall. There you go. That's the last feast of the year, the feast of ingathering, otherwise known as the Feast of Tabernacles. Correct? Okay. So now here, the first time they went into the land, it was in the beginning of the year, in the feast of the Passover, and they were circumcised and prepared, and they kept the Passover, and they were ready to eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan. Here we are in 2016, and we are going to have our hearts circumcised so that we'll be prepared to enter the promised land. And before we enter into the gates of New Jerusalem, when we're on the Sea of Glass, we're going to keep a feast. Before we enter the gates of the New Jerusalem, while we're on the Sea of Glass, singing the song of Moses and the Lamb, we're going to keep a feast. What feast are we going to keep? What feast are we going to keep? We're going to keep a feast. What feast are we going to keep? Yes, that's right. The Feast of the Booths. That's right. Also called the Feast of the Tabernacles, also called the Feast of Ingathering. There's three names for the same feast. Most people try to make it three different feasts. That's erroneous. There's the same feast, three different names. It's on the 15th day of the 7th month. That's right. The Feast of Ingathering, otherwise known as the Feast of Tabernacles, which they did live in booths. So we're going to keep that feast before we go into the New Jerusalem, just like they kept the Passover feast before they went into the Promised Land. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Testing 1, 2, 3. This is going to get real deep, so I want to make sure you're with me in the beginning here, because it's going to get real deep as we get into it, okay? All right, it's going to get real deep, real powerful, okay? Just letting you all know. Okay, so now we have the children of Israel who are the children of those that were in rebellion against the Most High. So their fathers rebelled against the Most High, and he swore to them, you're not entering into my rest. But their children are trusting in the Messiah, trusting in the Father. They need to have their hearts circumcised. So they're going to be circumcised, and they're going to be prepared to enter the Promised Land the second time now, as they go for the second attempt. And before they go in there, they're keeping the Feast of the Passover, which is a recognition of the sacrifice of the Messiah. Us, before we go in, we're going to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Zechariah chapter 14 shows us that very plainly. Revelation 14 illustrates that very plainly. We're going to keep the Feast of Tabernacles before the Feast of Ingathering, the Feast of Harvest, before we go into the Promised Land. And we're going to keep it on the Sea of Glass, because we're going to be on the Sea of Glass, singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. The Sea of Glass is before the throne of Yahweh. So his throne is going to be with us, and we're going to have the Sea of Glass. We're going to sing the song Moses and the Lamb. We're going to be traveling through space and keeping the Feast of the Tabernacles. You say, well, how can we keep it? We won't be in the New Jerusalem, because we'll be on the Sea of Glass, you see. And with the Sea of Glass means the Father's throne is there. And wherever the Father is, because he said, I place my name there, we can keep it. And he's going to be there. And the Ark of the Covenant is going to be there on the Sea of Glass. And we're going to keep the Feast of the Tabernacles before we get into the city. Okay? Everybody got that? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now, so far we got those two parts. Now we're going to get to the most important part. Okay? Yahawashi chapter 5. Yahawashi chapter 5, which also tells you, by the way, as we get closer to the return of the Messiah, he reveals little by little more about his return. Like, for example, now we understand what time of year it's going to be. He's going to return in the fall. Okay? He's going to return in the fall. The first advent of the Messiah was in the fall. He was baptized in the fall, and his death and resurrection happened in the spring. The outpouring of the early rain of the power of the Spirit happened on the Feast of Pentecost. That's why they called it Pentecost. In between Pentecost and the last feast, there is the Day of Atonement, which is the preparation to have all sin removed. That's where we are right now in history. Right now, Yahawashi is the high priest, and he's there, as we're going to talk about more, to remove all sin off his people. To remove all sin off his people, so that they're prepared for the circumcision. And they'll be in perfect righteousness, and they'll be obedient to his commandments. He's doing that right now. That's what the high priestly ministry is all about. He's preparing his people to live without sin. That's what he's doing. We're going to talk more about that. So now, the last feast of the year, and that's not a feast, the Day of Atonement. That's not a feast. Some people try to make it a feast. It's not a feast. The Day of Atonement is a day of affliction. Okay, it's for us to be repentant. That's where we get circumcised in our hearts. Now, the last feast of the year, the third one, is the Feast of Tabernacles. Let's look at Yahawashi chapter 5 from verse 13. This is going to be the powerful part right here. From verse 13 to verse 15. Yahawashi chapter 5 from verse 13 to verse 15. Notice what it says. And it came to pass when Yahawashi, or Joshua, was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, And behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Yahawashi said unto him, went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, and watch this very carefully. He said, Nay, but as captain of the host of Yahweh am I now come. And Yahawashi fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of Yahweh's host said unto Yahawashi, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Yahawashi did so. Now let's stop right here. First off, this being that showed up by Yahawashi, he said, as captain of the Lord's host am I now come. Did you catch that? He said, as captain of the Lord's host am I now come. Why do I bring that up? Because he apparently had come before in some other form. We're going to talk about that. But he said, as captain of the Lord's host have I now come. That's number one. Number two, he accepted worship from Joshua, didn't he? He accepted worship. Joshua worshiped him. He didn't say, don't worship me, because Gabriel told Yachanan, don't worship me, right? Notice again, Revelation chapter 19, Revelation 19:10. Notice what it says, Revelation 19:10. Yachanan was so overwhelmed by everything that Gabriel had shown him. And so he fell down. The Bible says, and I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahawashi. Worship Yahweh, for the testimony of Yahawashi is the spirit of prophecy. So Gabriel didn't let Yachanan, John the Revelator, worship him, because angels not supposed to receive worship. And again, Revelation chapter 22. Revelation chapter 22. Revelation 22 from verse 8 and verse 9. Notice what it says. Revelation 22 verse 8 and 9. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. He was overwhelmed. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them that keep the sayings of this book. Worship Yahweh. So angels are not supposed to receive worship. So who was this then that showed up in Joshua's presence and said, Bow, and you on holy ground. Take your shoes off, brother, because you on holy ground. And I'm here as captain of the host of the Most High. That's right. It was none other than the angel of the covenant, Yahawashi himself. Okay, now let's look at the Gospel of John and figure this out. How do we know Yahawashi was there? Well, let's see. Gospel of John, chapter 1. Gospel of John, chapter 1. And we're going to read from verse 1 down to verse, let's see, from verse 1 down to verse 10. From verse 1 to 10. Okay? Gospel of John, chapter 1, from verse 1 to 10. Watch very carefully. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yahweh, and the Word was Yahweh. The same was in the beginning with Yahweh. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from Yahweh whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, And the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Now let's break this down a little bit. So the word that he's speaking of, later on he was saying the word became flesh and dwelt among us. This is the Messiah. And it says about the Messiah, he was one with the Father. Let's make this very clear. The Messiah is not the Father, but he was there with the Father. Testing 1, 2, 3. He is not the Father. There's a Messiah and there's a Father. He is the Son of the Father. Okay, there's two beings here. Okay, but he says that without him was not anything made that was made. So that means whenever the Father was making something, Yahawashi was there. Messiah was there. Wherever the Father was creating earth, Yahweh was there. He was there in the beginning. Okay, let's continue down to verse 18. Gospel of John chapter 1 verse 18. Gospel of John chapter 1 verse 18. Notice what the scripture says. No man, watch this now very carefully, no man have seen Yahweh at any time. That's Gospel of John chapter 1 verse 18. No man have seen Yahweh at any time. The only begotten Son that is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him. No man have seen Yahweh at any time. Even when they were at Mount Sinai and he gave them the law, the 10 commandments, the covenant, they didn't see him. They only heard his voice. So if he sends a representative from heaven and they see somebody that's like the Most High, who is that? It's the Son. The Son always declares the Father. And that's why even when Messiah was on the earth, he always said, I come in my Father's name. I come and I speak words from my Father. He never said he come in his own name or he speak his own word. It's always from his Father. Okay? So when Joshua saw this being and he said, as captain of the Lord's host, am I now come? This is the Messiah. He's leading them into the promised land. Well, again, as we know, Messiah is going to lead us into the promised land, right? So here we go. Wait a minute. We need 2 witnesses, right? So let's get another witness. Colossians, those that may hear this on YouTube, it might be unbelievable for them. So let's get another witness. Colossians chapter 1. And I tell you the truth though, I can show all the scriptures on this if I want to. There's some people that are just not going to believe it. I mean, that's as simple as that. But I'm just going to show the scriptures. It's between them and the Spirit what they want to believe. Okay. So Colossians chapter 1. Colossians chapter 1. I'm going to start at verse 12, and I'm going to read down to verse 19. Colossians chapter 1, from verse 12, I'm going to read down to verse 19. Giving thanks unto the Father, that is Yahweh, which hath made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light, who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, watch very carefully, and has translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. That means the Son is going to have a kingdom. Remember? Prophet, priest, and king. In whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins, who is the image, watch carefully now, who is the image of the invisible Yahweh, the firstborn of every creature. For by him, that is by the Son, Yahawashi, were all things created that were in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things. And by him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell. Got that? So Yahawashi was there when the children of Israel were being led through the wilderness. Let's get another witness just to make sure, because I need this other witness to come to the next point. Okay? 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I'm going to read from verse 1, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, from verse 1 down to verse 6. Okay? 1 Corinthians 10 from 1 to 6. Notice what it says. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant. See, he's trying to dispel ignorance so people can grow in light. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea. Watch this now. And were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink. Watch this. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Messiah. Huh? But with many of them, Yahweh was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. See? So they said that spiritual rock that followed them was who? Who followed them? It was the Messiah that followed them. Wait a minute. Let's get some more witness. Let's get some more witness. Let's get some more witness. Okay? Let's get some more witness. Let's look at Exodus. This is when they're leaving. This is when they're leaving. The night that they're leaving. The night of the Passover. When the firstborn were killed. And they're leaving Egypt. Watch this. This is Exodus chapter 14. Exodus chapter 14. And watch this now. Exodus 14 from verse, I'm going to start at verse 14 down to verse 20. Okay? From verse 14 down to verse 20. They're leaving, and all of a sudden, here come the Egyptian army after them. He said, we ain't letting you slaves go free. You crazy? What are we doing? We must have lost our mind. We're going to get them slaves back. Okay? Yahweh shall fight for you, Moses told them, and ye shall hold your peace. And Yahweh said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thy hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon all his hosts, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahweh, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And look at this now. Watch this, verse 19. And the angel of Elohim, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came to pass between the camp of the Egyptians, and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all night. Who was that? Who was that angel in the cloud that stood between the Egyptians and the Israelites? Who was that angel in the cloud? Who was that? That was the Messiah again. That's right. That was Yahawashi, the Messiah. That was him. Okay? Again, we're not finished yet. Let's look at Exodus chapter 23. Same book, Exodus chapter 23. Exodus chapter 23. Watch this very carefully, brothers and sisters. Watch this very carefully. Exodus chapter 23 from verse 20 down to verse 23. Okay? Exodus chapter 23 from verse 20 down to verse 23. Behold, look what he said. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies and an adversary unto thine adversaries. For mine angel shall go before thee and bring thee unto the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Ivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. So who is that? that Yahweh said, I'm going to send mine angel, and he's going to lead you into the promised land, and you're going to listen to him. My name is in him. And through it, it's the Messiah. Right. So here we are in Joshua. They got circumcised. Their fathers died in the wilderness because of their disobedience. The children are now on the borders of the promised land. They were circumcised, both in heart and in flesh. They kept the Passover. And now there stands before Joshua, or Yahawashi, an angel. And this angel wasn't just standing there. What did he have in his hand? Let's look back now at Joshua chapter 5. And let's see the Messiah right there, getting ready to lead them into the promised land. Yahawashi, Joshua chapter 5, from verse 13 down to verse 15. Let's read it again. Now let's look and see what he had in his hand. Notice what he had. Watch this. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of Yahweh am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship. And he said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of Yahweh's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. You catching me now? So here, what did he have in his hand? What did he have in his hand, brothers and sisters? What did he have in his hand when Joshua saw him? He had a sword in his hand. What was he getting ready to do? He getting ready to fight against Israel's enemies. He's going to lead Israel into the promised land. He said, I am come as captain of the host of Yahweh. I'm going to lead Israel into the promised land. There you go. What has that got to do with us today? We're talking about the Messiah. We're talking about getting on the borders of the promised land. He's going to come as a warrior with this sword drawn, just like he did the first time. And when he's going to put wonderful plagues upon the wicked that are fighting against his children of Israel as he's getting ready to deliver them. Okay? And in Revelation 19, of course, gives us exactly how he's going to come. Notice what it says, Revelation chapter 19. Revelation chapter 19. And we're looking from verse, let's see. Oh, man. Let's start at verse 7. And let's go down to verse 13. Okay? Well, actually, from verse 7 down to verse 16. I'm sorry. From verse 7 down to verse 16. Watch this. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. You see, they're circumcised, ready to go. They got that perfect righteousness upon them. They're ready to go. Praise the Most High. And he said unto me, Right, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said unto me, These are the true sayings of Yahweh. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahawashi. Worship Yahweh, for the testimony of Yahawashi is the spirit of prophecy. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. Watch it now. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed in a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. There you go. And the armies which are in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, clean and white. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty Yahweh, or Allah Shaddai. Huh? And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, or Master of Masters. There you go. So just as he came the first time and he led them into the children of Israel into Egypt with his sword drawn. He's coming the second time with his sword drawn to lead the children of Israel into Egypt and to fight against their enemies. See, right now, everybody's worried. Everybody, there's this weak and meek Messiah that they always picture in with white Jesus. But let me tell you something. As the high priest, this is the game right now, brothers and sisters. The game is mercy right now. See, that's why we need to be perfected so that we can give the message of mercy, because that's the mercies right now. You see, this is not a question of if the Messiah is going to destroy this earth and make it over, recreate it, renew it. It's going to happen. And he's going to destroy all sinners off of it. There's no question about that. Okay? The Father said, this earth, all the earth is mine. We heard him say that. He said, I bless you above all people, he said in Exodus 19, for all the earth is mine. See, Satan thinks he has it, but he's just renting for a little while. That's all he's doing. Satan is renting. And all of the people following him, which are the majority, they're renting too. They're just temporary inhabitants of this place. They're going to be destroyed off this place. All sinners, all breakers of the covenant, all breakers of the commandments and statutes and judgments of the Most High, all unrepentant liars are going to be destroyed from off this planet. Right now, the game is mercy. Because as the Most High's Messiah, the high priest, Yahawashi, after the order of Melchizedek, as he sits as the high priest, there is mercy to the inhabitants of planet Earth. That mercy is only extended until the 144,000 are sealed. Okay? When the 144,000 is sealed, all bets are off. So right now, brothers and sisters, we are trying to bring people to the door of mercy. That's what we're doing right now. Because the judgment is coming. He led the children of Israel the first time with his sword drawn. He's going to lead the children of Israel the second time with his sword drawn. So right now is the preparation. See, we're being circumcised right now. We're just like them in the wilderness. We're on the borders. We're being circumcised. Yeah, we're being prepared to keep the last feast. We're being prepared. And we're being prepared for that seal of the Spirit. And when we're ready, the loud cry is going to be given. See, you got all kinds of people out here now claiming we're preaching the message of Revelation 18. Ain't no such thing right now. Only those that have the seal can preach the message of Revelation 18. If you ain't got the seal, you ain't preaching nothing. Okay? And you ain't going to have the seal until you're fully representative of the Messiah. Which means you are an Israelite. A Hebrew Israelite. Okay? You're not a Baptist. You're not a Pentecostal. You're not a Roman Catholic, or SDA, or Mormon. You're not a Muslim. You're an Hebrew Israelite through the Messiah. The nation is Israel. There's no other. There's no other. You're not African. You're not an Arab. You're not an Englishman, a German, a French, an Australian, an American, a Jamaican, a Canadian. No, if you belong to Yah, short for Yahweh, if you belong to him and you come through the Messiah, you're an Israelite. And he is coming to deliver his Israelite people into the promised land, the New Jerusalem. He's doing it. Okay? So that's how he's coming back when he returns. Right now is mercy. That's why people think, they're out here, people out here committing all kinds of heinous sin. They're living all kinds of abominable lifestyles, and they're thinking that the Most High must be asleep, that he's not paying attention, or that he even accepts their abominations. But it's because it's the time of mercy. That's the only thing, brothers and sisters. It's the time of mercy. And he's trying to use his servants to bring, and that's the problem. You see, you got people out here, woe to these pastors that are out here claiming to preach truth and are watering down the truth. Woe to them that come without anything that's not straight truth. Woe to them when they're not bringing the straight word testimony to the people, because the people need to know what's getting ready to happen, brothers and sisters. They need to understand there ain't no joke here. It's a time of mercy because he's trying to seal his Israelite people. When he's finished and he finished the sealing and he steps out of there and he puts on his kingly robe and he steps on that white horse, it's over. It's over. Okay? Woe to them false preachers that's out here concerned with money, concerned with their position in their denomination, and not concerned with the straight truth alone as it is in their Christ, who is the Messiah. Woe to them. Because brothers and sisters, that's the only thing that matters right now. The straight truth. Put away that pride. Put away that pride. And we need all of us humble ourselves before the Most High and follow his truth, his commandments, his statutes and judgments in the name of the Messiah. That's all that matters right now. To be right with him. All this other stuff is just that garbage stuff. Because brothers and sisters, when the Messiah returns that second time, there's going to be no mercy. There's going to be no mercy. The Bible says he's poured out the wrath without mixture. He's in righteousness, he does judge and make war. That's what the scripture we just read, didn't it? It said in righteousness, he does judge and make war. And he's going to rule with a rod of iron. Ain't going to be no mercy. Not then. Mercy is now. Now is the time of mercy, brothers and sisters. Now is the time. And so that's the message now. It's the justification by faith message that causes people to be obedient to the commandments of the Most High. That's the message right now. The justification by faith message that causes the people to be obedient to the commandments of the Most High. That's the message, because it's a message of mercy. But as we saw in Joshua, that was just an example, a model of what's going to happen at the end. Joshua chapter 5, that's an example. He stood there with his sword drawn and he told Joshua, I am now come as captain of the house of Yahweh, captain of his host. That's how I'm come now. I'm not coming as no suffering saint this time. I'm not coming as no weeping lamb this time. I'm not coming soft and flowery. I'm coming with my sword drawn. Be ready. See what I'm saying, brothers and sisters? It's no joke this time. It's no joke. So, it depends on where, what role are we going to play? What role are we going to play? Are we going to be in the role of the Israelites? Are we going to be in the role of the unbelievers? What role are we going to play? Well, that's up to us. That's up to us as individuals. But we know what he desires of us. We know what he expects of us. Okay? We know what he expects of us. He expects repentance, the receiving of perfection by faith in his grace. He expects us to be obedient to his commandments. Because everybody's out here sinning and living all types of abominable lifestyle and saying all kinds of abominable things about the Bible and about the Most High. They're saying all kinds. They're making Christ into some weepy, flowery white dude, and it's really sickening. And he's silent right now, but it's not going to be forever. He's not going to be silent forever. Now is the time of mercy. That's what they should recognize. It's the time of mercy. The time of mercy. Let's have a word of prayer.